Okay. Good evening, friends. It's my privilege and pleasure to sort of interview the doyen of the NBFC industry. I think the two names are almost synonymous. NBFC and TDS are almost synonymous. I don't think I can say anything more than that to emphasize what sort of a colossus he has been in so many years that the NBFC industry has been around. Sir, I believe that you started your career in a foreign bank, right? And I know for this, for a fact that when in 1989, 90, etc., when I was looking for a job, I said, I am not going to join the stupid leasing and finance companies anyways, or leasing and HP companies. It was not a very well-known name. And in spite of being in a foreign bank, why did you actually move to an NBFC? Which was a bad word in those days.
So before I answer the question, Srini and Mahesh and FIDC, thank you very much for according me this honor. I don't know, I deserve all the lovely things that Mahesh and Srini said, but all the same, thank you very much. It's lovely to be in the midst of friends, if nothing else. Now, to answer your question, Srini, really, in the early 1980s, we didn't have this jargon called startup. But actually, what brought me to this industry was a startup, which was leasing. See, leasing was a relatively unknown concept. In the early 80s, there was literally only one company in the country which was doing leasing, which was called appropriately the first leasing company of India. And Sundaram was one of the earliest players to venture into leasing, and that came about through a concept of a joint sector participation where International Finance Corporation, IFC Washington, seeded 4 leasing companies across India, one in Western India, one in Southern India, one in East, one in North. So we were the ones picked for the South. So it was the excitement of getting into a completely greenfield area. As I said, this jargon of startup was not there, but effectively that's what it was. It was startup, and I thought, I was young at that time, so obviously looking for something completely different to do. And as you rightly said, I think 95% of my family and all of my friends thought I was a lunatic to quit what was considered amongst the top 5 jobs in the country in those days. Right? I think there was Unilever, Hindustan Lever, Reliance Bank, the City. There were 5 names which were considered the top 5 jobs in the country, and they thought, this guy has gone bonkers. But I can tell you today, after 45, 47 years, I have zero regrets about that decision.
Move from a bank to a leasing company. And what were your learnings? What did you really pick up on the way?
I think the big change for me was, moving from what was essentially very, very structured, very, very rule-bound, I would even go to the extent of saying bureaucratic, to a structure where truly customer first. Right? Everybody taught the language of customer is king, but in the NBFC space, and especially in Sundaram Finance, I actually experienced that customer, and in fact, the founder of Sundaram Finance, Mr. Santanam, who all of us looked up to as our guru, he often said this. He said, it is the customer who pays your salary. Right? It was an article of faith with him. So if you ask me what is the one big shift that I saw, that is the big shift. Because in banks, we always felt we are doing the borrower a favor. That was the attitude. I don't know, even now, maybe in many cases that is the view. But always the attitude was, you are the borrower, I am the lender, I am sitting on a high pedestal. With the NBFCs, certainly that was not the case. because we believed, as I said, customer pays our salary, which is why, our entire business model was built around that core belief. I think that is the big difference, I would say.
And possibly great scope for innovation as well.
Entirely, because, it was largely a clean sheet of paper. And, and especially, as I said, I came into this leasing vertical where there was nothing called past practice. But we had to learn the practice. So it was a very interesting time, because on the one hand, we were learning what this animal called leasing is. There were huge tax implications. There were financial implications, and the subject itself was new. So a colleague of mine and I, we spent time with one of the largest leasing companies in the UK. We went there to try and figure out what this animal is. And because our tax laws were very similar to UK tax laws, we got a lot of benefit from studying those. And then we tried to put those. So having learned what leasing is, we then tried to go and convince our customers why they should go for leasing. So it was a very, very exciting time in the 80s.
And in these 4 decades ever since, how have you seen the NBFC industry evolve business-wise and regulations-wise?
If I had to describe NBFCs in one word, I would say we are survivors, right? I don't think I can find a better word to describe NBFCs, because if you look at the churn, if you look at the turbulence that we've gone through, I mean, for me, it's 40 years now, because 1983 is when I joined Southern Finance over here in 2023. So if I look back over 40 years, I think we've been tested in every possible way, economy-wise, legislation-wise, taxation-wise, regulation-wise, competition-wise. I don't know if there is any other industry which has been put through the rigor more than we have been. But the fact that all of us are here, right, and all our leaders are saying this is the best time that we have seen in a long time, that for me is ample proof, right, that no matter what the odds, no matter what the challenges, I think the resilience that we have shown as a sector is something truly remarkable. And I have lived through phases when many of us have wondered, is there a future for us? I have gone through periods when, as the managing director of Sovereign Finance, my managers, my boys have come up to me and said, sir, will our company survive? Will this industry survive? All these MNCs are coming, banks are coming, they're cutting rates like crazy. Will we be there? Will we disappear? I mean, I've lived through those times also. But in my mind, I was always supremely confident, because I believed then, I continue to believe now, that what we have built, what we have created is very, very unique. And the reason why, I mean, subject to what Mr. Narendra said about banks having caps on their lending, which is true, I think if you look at it from the bank's point of view, their experience of lending to the NBFC sector has been one of the best, right? Of course, there has been the occasional black sheep. There are black sheep in all industries. But if you exclude those black sheep, their experience of lending to the NBFC industry has been uniformly first class, right? And to me, that is, I mean, proof of the pudding is really that.
I agree. In the earlier days, say in the later part of the 80s or early 90s, when I joined this industry, it used to be a very touch and feel kind of a thing. You know, you had to go sit with the customer, understand him. The customer empathy actually came from that, so it was a great thing. But of late, we are talking about data, technology, fintech, all these things kind of overtaking or taking over this customer touch and feel thing. How do you see this development?
I have a slightly unpopular view on this, Srini. Yeah, surely, technology has pervaded all of our lives, but I don't think it is either or. I don't think touch and feel has become in any way relevant. How I see it, on the other hand, is that technology enables us let me give an example. See, today, because so much of your data collection, so much of your analytics, so much of your credit appraisals, etc., are enabled electronically or through technology, my argument is it frees me and my people up to go and meet my customers more. Earlier, I used to find that half of our time was spent on filling forms, keying in data, right? Validating this, maker, checker, and all of that. So my argument is now all that has been taken away, right? So my field officer, his only job is in the field, right? Talking to customers, talking to dealers, talking to whoever. So I feel that it is definitely not either or additionally, I feel that technology is becoming a great enabler. On the one hand, it enables greater accuracy, greater productivity, all of that. That is one side of it. But the big boon, as I said, is it is freeing my people up to be where they should be. They should not be pen pushers, they should not be form fillers. And I think technology is actually helping them to do that.
So would it be appropriate to say technology is like fire, a good servant but a bad master?
I would say that. I would certainly say that because I think technology, we should be driving technology rather than technology should be driving us. Because as much as, all this hype about technology, to my mind, the character of a person, and especially in the segments where we operate, right, where data is still not foolproof, right? We talk a lot about credit bureaus and analytics, this, that, and the other, but that covers perhaps the top 5-10% of the population. And as I see it, more and more, and comments were made. I think even the chairman talked about how at the high end, the banks are taking over the customers. So we will be more and more playing in, the tier 3, tier 4, even lower, where credit data is still, to my mind, largely, unmined. And that is where I think our advantage lies. Our ability to understand risk, our ability to connect with those customers, our ability to collect, in all of which technology, of course, will play a role, right? So we can be more efficient in doing what we have done traditionally, what in Tamil Nadu we call Nityapathi lending, or in Hindi, Matha Dekhe, where it is still touch and feel. So to my mind, in the segments where NBFCs will operate more and more, I think touch and feel will continue to be extremely relevant, extremely important, because let me flip this and say, we are the only people in the financial sector who understand touch and feel, right? Nobody else understands touch and feel because they all moved away from this decades ago. We are the only guys who still understand that. So to my mind, I would say it's a unique skill we have. Let's protect it, right? Rather than blindly follow everybody and run after technology.
In the last 5-7 years, there have been so many new NBFCs that have come, right? Many of them riding on technology as a key driver, some of them riding on different segments as a driver. And everybody's got ambitious plans, etc., etc. Now, what would be your word of advice for them? Between primarily, if I could give some examples, top line versus bottom line, aggression versus regulation. How do you kind of, if you were an advisor to them, what would be your words of advice?
I'm an old-fashioned guy, so when it comes to money and lending. So I think you already know what my response will be. See, I have a very simple answer to this. See, none of us here, I don't know if there is any exception, none of us here is doing business with our own money or our father or grandfather's money, right? So essentially, the first thing that all of us need to recognize is that we are custodians of public money. It is a bank or it is a depositor or an institution. Ultimately, it is somebody else's money. It is the money of the public which is flowing to us through these different mediums. So primarily, I would say, we have to first tell ourselves, get all our people to understand that we are custodians of public money. If you understand that role properly, then the answer becomes obvious, right? You cannot, because in this business, giving money away, as we all know, is the easiest thing in the world. The first part of it is getting the money back, right? Which is why in Sundaram Finance, we always talked about this ideal of GQP. Growth is very important, but it has to be accompanied by quality. It has to be accompanied by profitability, right? The money that you put out has to be put out meaningfully, and that money should come back to you. So I think it's a virtuous cycle. And, this is an analogy I've used through my working years. In our business, I think we should always think of ourselves as marathon runners rather than 100-meter sprinters. I think that's the best way I can summarize this, because this is not like selling a consumer product where I've done the deal, I won my commission, I'm gone. Here, the day we do the lending is when our relationship starts, right? And then it is 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever. So our thinking always has to be that of a marathon runner, which means, I'm not saying aggression is wrong. The adage used to be market aggressively, lend conservatively, right? So there is not, aggression per se is not bad, as long as you know where the line is drawn. Can you go and meet 1,000 people a day? Certainly, please do. That is aggression. But when it comes to writing the check, is it 10 out of 1,000 or 990 out of 1,000? I think that is where I think we need to be clear.
I'm extremely well put. I completely agree with you that we can't run marathon like Usain Bolt.
Yes.
Just die.
Exactly.
Now, sir, the other thing is that you have had a kind of a two roles or two faces. One is as an industry participant, the other one as the de facto co-creator of or creator of FIDC, as it were. And in these years that you've been associated with FIDC as a chairman and now chairman emeritus, how do you think FIDC itself has evolved? So past, where do you see FIDC today? And since we all are now talking about the Amrit Kal and 2047, etc., where do you see FIDC in 2047?
Okay. Let me answer the first two, they are easier. See, I think FIDC now is what, 18 years, Mahesh? 18 years. When I think back to the time we started, there were days of great struggle. You were there also at that time. There were days of great struggle, getting people to give their time, forget about everything else. Money and membership came much later. Just to get people to commit their time was a struggle. And how much ever credit I give to this gentleman, Mahesh Thakkar, will not be enough, because he was the guy who bent his back, right? And people called him all kinds of names. He took all of that, but he stood firm because he was committed to making FIDC a credible voice, right? So as I say, I can't give him enough credit for what he's done. Of course, then we struggled, we fell, we got up, and fortunately, we did not give up, right? And of course, we had a few very dedicated fellow travelers. Mukesh Gandhi, who unfortunately is no longer with us, he was one of our early supporters. And of course, Sriram Group was there. We had a core group of people who were committed to taking this forward. And then slowly over time, I think, not because of any noise that we made, but I think because of the work that we did, I think the industry participants began to see what FIDC is. And then today, of course, Mahesh stands up and says, I've got 128 members, I've collected 65 lakhs. All these numbers seem dreamlike to me. I know we used to be scrounging for 1,000 rupees and 2,000 rupees back then, but it's lovely to see where we are. And I think, over the last 5-7 years, through the, untiring efforts of Raman Agarwal, then Ramesh, Umesh, I think we've now got a much stronger and purposeful army that is driving FIDC, and you can see that, in the credibility that it has got us, whether it's with the regulator, with the government, with the media. I think today on anything concerning the NBFC sector, FIDC's voice is heard, and it is heard with respect. So I think that, in some little way, I take satisfaction because, as you say, I was one of the people who was involved in laying the first foundation stones. So I look back with some amount of joy and pride at that. 2047, unfortunately, I don't have a crystal ball, but if I had to dream of what, we would be, I would say that today, if you look at an IBA, right, they are the last word as far as banking is concerned. Anything outside of the regulator, it is IBA. Similarly, for the mutual fund industry, you have AMFI. For insurance, you have the GI Council, LI Council. They represent the industry in totality. They come across as a completely cohesive, united body, and they speak for the industry, right? I wouldn't want to wait till 2047. I hope much sooner, probably by 2027, that FIDC will become that, right? Of course, for that, we will need huge support from our members, because ultimately we exist because of our members, right? The purpose of FIDC, the purpose of our being, is only to serve members. And as Mahesh repeatedly keeps saying, this is not one-way traffic. We want more and more from members. We want them to contribute their ideas, their time, of course, their money and their support, so that we can become truly, the unquestioned voice of the NBFC sector, right? Certainly, we already do enjoy a fair degree of credibility, but I think it can be higher, right? So that would be my vision. But as I say, I won't wait till 2047. I think it should. 2047, none of us or most of us won't be around. So I think I have a selfish interest. We should all see it in our lifetimes, no?
I appreciate that. No, and one of the things that people are always very struck with you when whoever meets you is the kind of passion with which you speak and the passion with which you work. Now, what really motivates you? And I'm quite sure there is the other side of TTS that you also need to relax, right? Now, how do you handle these two? What motivates you and how do you relax?
I think for me, as I said, last 40 years, this is all I've done, right? And it's not because I couldn't have done other things. I did have opportunities to go outside the sector, outside the space, and do other things. But, I think it's just two things. I think one, working for a company like Sundaram Finance, I think that was the most enriching experience for me in every manner, because from a point of view of learning, from the point of view of sharing, and as I said, this great concept of customer pays your salary. That is something which, through my 40 years of working, has lived with me, right? I think it's a fantastic concept, and, no wonder Mr. Santanam is considered as, the visionary of this industry. The second reason I would say is my guru, Mr. G.K. Raman. I think I grew up under him. Whatever I know about this business, I learned from him. Whatever I learned about managing people, interacting with people, I learned from him. And there are a few people in this room who have been fortunate to know Mr. Raman. If you have worked with Mr. Raman, it's very difficult not to be passionate, right? He was the kind of person who just infused energy into any space. He walked into a room, people would stop doing what they were doing and look at him. That was the force of his personality. And because I worked with him for so many years, it was difficult for me to be any other way, I guess. So, and I often say this, I think people give me a lot of credit. I think much of that credit belongs, I mean, one big chunk of the credit belongs to my parents. The other big chunk belongs to Mr. Raman. I think if there is some balance left from that, that's the only thing I will claim for myself. And I say this in all honesty. This is not being, unduly modest or whatever. This is truly how I've felt all my life.
And how do you relax? What are your other hobbies?
See, the one thing also for which I must give credit to Mr. Raman, I think when you work hard, right? But when you walk out of the office, it can be 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock, leave the office behind. I never carried work home, right? So this was an article of faith, and this is a lesson I learned from him. What he used to say, what you cannot achieve between 9 and 6, you're not going to achieve by burning midnight oil. Organize yourself, right? Whatever you have to do it in the office, but when you walk out, you should literally take off your vardi, right? And walk out as individual so and so, which is mostly what I followed. And, of course, passions, there are many. Photography has been a great passion, and some of you might remember the New Year cards that I used to send you for the last 25 years. The pictures on those New Year cards were photographs which I took mostly of nature, birds, and I had a great friend and collaborator by the name of Krishnan who used to help me put these greetings together. He unfortunately passed away too young to die, but so after he passed away, I lost my passion to do New Year cards. But that was something that I truly loved doing. Then, of course, like every self-respecting Indian, I'm a cricket fanatic. And all these years, watching a test match was a luxury, because how do you, being in an NBFC, where's the time? Even to watch highlights was a big deal. So now I'm making up with a vengeance. So every test match, from the toss to the last ball, I put my feet up and watch the test match. So this is something that I thoroughly enjoy doing. And of course, music has been a long time passion. So get to listen to more music, read a lot more. So enough things to do.
Great. The last part of this thing, it's a rapid fire question. Okay. So I'm going to ask him some 6-7 questions. Work or life?
Sorry?
Work or life?
Life.
NBFC or music?
NBFC.
Formal dress versus vesti?
Yes, as the occasion demands. Okay. I think vesti is also formal. People tend to degrade it by calling it a lungi. Vesti is not lungi. Vesti is a very dignified form of dress. So as the occasion demands, either formal Western vardi or vesti vardi. I think both are fine.
Kamal or Rajni?
Shivaji Ganesan.
Okay. And what's your favorite food?
Favorite food is tair sadam, curd rice, for those who don't understand. I think if you're a homegrown Madras boy, then invariably I think tair sadam will.
Maybe with some avakai.
Maybe with some avakai. Why not?
Since you're a music aficionado, A.R. Rahman or Ilayaraja?
Ilayaraja.
Who's your favorite choice of a banker and why?
Banker or bank?
Bank.
State Bank of India.
Why?
Because I think I value all the things they value, right? Solidity, prudence, long-termism, all of they may not be in today's language sexy like some of the new generation banks, but yeah, State Bank of India. I've been a loyal State Bank customer also for many, many years. So, yeah.
I promised to close the session at 1800 hours. It is 17:59, so we got about 60 seconds to go. May I request TTS sir to sing 60 seconds for us?
This is very unfair, Srini. See, those of you who want to run, please run, because this is going to be a punishment. No, I don't need a mic because all the gruffness in my. I think since it's the end of the meeting, can I sing national anthem?
That is at 601.
Okay. What can I sing?
You want a scale or something?
No, I'm not. Okay, my throat is really bad, so I think it lends itself to, a KL Saigal song, right? Because then the throat will, yeah. So please bear with me. This is going to be terrible. Soja Rajkumari, soja mein banhari, soja Rajkumari, soja. Thank you.
No, I have nothing to say hereafter. I think we should just stop the meeting here.
Thanks, TTS, thanks, KVS. Friends, all of you are from Chennai. Have you seen this side of TTS sir, so far? I hope we have been able to showcase you the real TTS and see how the person has been able to balance all the affairs in his life and family. Friends,
I only wish we had more such lunatic youngsters join in this industry and become like TTS sir.
Yes. Raman Agarwal is also the leader in TTS fan club, and everybody of us is there. Friends, as a token of our love, appreciation, and affection towards TTS sir, we were discussing, what gift to give to TTS sir. Let me see, but we could not find any. So don't worry. सूरज को आप कैसे उजाला दोगे?
Your love is my gift.
सूरज को आप कैसे उजाला दोगे? So the best gift to TTS sir is TTS himself. I request Umesh sir, Kamlesh, and all the directors to present and take this photo opportunity with the TTS sir. And after that, all of you also can join. A small token, which is really nothing but bit costly. Please, if yes, Arul. Dinner and a lovely interaction, jovial and great mood.
I will quickly run after this.
Yeah, he has a flight to take to Calcutta, so he has to run. So if you can. Somebody can take the photo.
Mahesh, have we done? Nobody seems to be there. All the people on the screen are there.
I think it's done.
The reason we were absent was that we were all seeing TTS sir off. So I think we can now call the meeting to close. Thank you all. I hope you enjoyed it.
Cocktail dinner.
Actually, e-cocktail.
Thank you. Thanks for all of you for joining
Thank you.
online.
Thank you. Thank you.
Raman, do take care. Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.